And speaking of the hospital, I don't think anyone's in the hospital, but I don't really know otherwise at this point. We may know. The ECW pay-per-view was filled with just insanity.
Yes.
And I think we should get into it. Open up with a Paul Heyman promo, talking about ECW being back, thanking the fans. Thanking the fans really like I was thanking Craig. He was on his knees, almost weeping. Mm-hmm. And they, suffice to say, appreciated him. This was very similar to what I talked about on, I believe, the Friday show, when Paul Heyman made the offer to Rey Mysterio. This was just classic Paul Heyman.
Paul Heyman being Paul Heyman.
Paul Heyman being Paul Heyman. If you are an ECW, if you've been an ECW before and you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. You've been there in the back when you've heard a speech very, very similar to this one. Gave this speech to all the people, and they were into it, and it was a very good opening to the show.
Okay.
Thank you, Vince.
Yes. There was not much else to say about it. He was a 5-minute speech. Everyone loved him because he's Paul, and they're ECW fans, and he said everything we knew he would say. And, I guess it got everyone in a happy mood and ready for more pro wrestling fun.
Taz and Jerry Lawler was exactly as predicted. It was a short confrontation. Taz came out. His first move was to slap Joey Styles in the booth.
That would be Jerry Lawler, not Taz.
I'm sorry.
That's really my role in the show. Is I don't add anything to the conversation. I just correct you when you are factually wrong.
I'm tired. It's late. Give me a break.
I understand.
Taz, I'm just going to say Taz did because I've already gotten started. So Taz slapped Joey Styles, went to the ring. Then Jerry Lawler came out. He also slapped Joey Styles. He was heading to the ring. At this point, Joey was upset about being slapped so much, so he jumped into the ring and he jumped on Jerry Lawler's back since Jerry Lawler was the closest man to him. Jerry Lawler snap-mared him down to the ground, set him up for the pile driver, and then Taz put him in the choke, and the ref raised his arm, dropped it 3 times. That was the end of that. This went about 30 seconds. So,
and the people loved it.
It was something where this was all you needed to do. And if you would have done any more, it would have been a mistake. Taz was so humongous. He was bulbous.
He's not in ring shape, no.
No, he was no Super Porky or anything of that nature. Of course, we didn't see him with his outfit off.
It's true. We see Porky shirtless all the time.
He was fat enough that everybody in the room with me, and if Taz happens to be listening, I just want you to know that I'm saying what everybody else in the room said. You don't have to get mad at me. Everybody else in the room was like, he's so fat he's not even scary anymore. He just did not look intimidating. He was just a fat little butterball, and that was that. But he is an announcer now. I don't even know if he wanted to come back for this stupid angle, but they made him come back. So
yeah.
He is the head ECW announcer, and we'll get into the SmackDown replacement in a little while there. Randy Orton faced Kurt Angle. This was a match designed to get Kurt Angle over as a killer. These guys have had better matches. There was nothing really wrong with this match. Mm-hmm. I think the story of this match and the story of the entire show was the crowd at the Hammerstein Ballroom. These people were just so great. If this had been a regular, I was thinking about this, if this had been a regular SmackDown crowd, like a bored, quiet crowd, this show very well might have just blown.
Historically bad. And it's kind of like the ECW head-to-head show where, the crowd totally saved it, although even more so tonight. This match was fine. It was, like you say, it was not as good as the other matches, or the match they had on SmackDown, for example, but they really appreciate, they're into Kurt, they like Kurt, they appreciate everything he does. And they really did not like Orton when he came out. And the highlight was Orton at one point made a comeback, and he put on his chin lock, and the crowd immediately started chanting boring.
Yes.
They did not chant boring because they were bored. They chanted boring because they didn't like Randy Orton and didn't want him to get over. It was a weird metaphysical kind of thing.
The whole story of the match was just chance. And to me, one of the funniest moments was the entryway to the ring was about 4 feet wide, maybe. So when Orton was coming down the aisle before the match, all you could see on the right and left-hand side of the screen were hands and middle fingers.
Yes.
Just rows and rows of middle fingers. And he's walking down the ramp, and all of a sudden, a fan punched Randy Orton.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, this fan was about 5'2" and 114 pounds. But still, Orton had every right to beat the living fuck out of this fan, and he didn't.
I think it may have actually been a child, which is the only reason he didn't.
Well, it may have been, because this was very...
I'm not sure, because there was a bunch of people there.
It was a small human being.
Yeah, it was not like a 9-year-old child, but 14 or something.
I don't know. The man he was yelling at looked older, just smaller. But
he may have been a different person. But but yes, Randy Orton was technically assaulted. This was not a Mike Tyson right hand or anything, but
he responded by looking at the man and staring him down for a while, and then looking at the camera with this grin on his face, like, "What a fucking goofball! I just got punched by a mark." And he went to the ring, and that was good stuff. But like I said, yeah, the whole I talked earlier about the whole point, or the whole, I guess, the gist of this pay-per-view was the fans. The whole it was. This is a great little. I need that Dave drop that we played the other day, where he was talking about death and just ranting and raving, and you didn't know what the point of what he was talking about was. It's kind of what I was doing right there, but
I think it's the song that contained that drop.
I'm tired. I've eaten a lot of pizza and cake and cookies, so my mind's not all here. But the point I was trying to make was the saving grace of this show. That's what I was looking for.
Viva Los Fans.
The saving grace of this show was the fans. Now, come Tuesday, when they start airing ECW in front of the SmackDown audience, we may be in for some bad programs.
That's entirely possible, and we'll get to it, but a lot of the stuff that made some of the matches on this show watchable, they won't be doing every week.
That's also true. So I think the point is, if you watch the ECW special and you watch this show, don't assume that the ECW deal is going to be totally fine because of how new and different and exciting the product seemed to be. Because in front of a WWE crowd, which is going to happen come this Tuesday, I mean, this whole thing could do a 180. I'm not saying it's going to. I don't know. Maybe this will work. I have no idea. But these two shows are aberrations.
Yes.
And I think that's the way to look at it. So Tuesday will be very interesting.
I'm less negative than I was a week ago, so I guess in that sense these two shows have worked. But I'm still skeptical about the whole thing.
But the reason that we're less negative is because we've seen two special shows, two aberrations.
Yeah.
And it's been two in a row is the other key. But I'm just very, very worried about... I don't know if worried is... I'm anxious. I'm interested in Tuesday because mostly just for business reasons. I want to see how this is going to work on the Sci-Fi Network, taping ECW before or after SmackDown in front of SmackDown fans. That will be a very important show. And the next 2 or 3 weeks of TV will be very important as well.
Of the 8 or 9 shows we're going to watch this week, I'm probably looking forward to that one the most.
Well, I do have the Dusty DVD now.
Well, that would trump it then, but...
So then we had FBI versus... Oh, by the way, Angle won with the ankle lock. We didn't even get into that.
If any of you were in any doubt about that.
Orton.
Actually, the highlight of it was afterwards when Orton was tilling his ankle and the ref tried to help him to the back, and Orton demanded 2 referees.
Yes, Orton was like, he used every cheap heel trick in the book, and it worked like a charm. He may have been the most hated guy on the show. Cena was very, very hated, but I don't know.
It occurred to me during the Cena match that maybe because, and we'll get to Cena later, but I was let down by the reaction to him. I expected more. I expected that Cena had to get to the ring surrounded by security guards, and he was not. And like I say, maybe because he was the end of the show and the crowd had been working very hard and burned themselves out. But they were fresh for Orton and tired for Cena. Maybe that's why. But yes, Orton got a very strong negative reaction.
I'm thinking part of it might have been that the fans were burnt out by the end. I mean, like I said, they were very passionate about their Cena hatred, but I don't know this was a 100% smart crowd. This could have been a situation where these are fans that knew they were supposed to boo him and did, but also knew that he was probably going to put their guy over and thus had a little bit of respect for him. Because the one chant that struck me more than anything else in the Cena match was, "You still suck," after he hit some move he'd never done before. So it was like they had a modicum of respect for him, or for the move that he did, because their chant was like, okay, that was cool, but you still suck. So with Orton, it was just like they just hated this man. They didn't want to see him. They didn't want to give him a chance. They wanted to boring chant him out of the building. So I don't know. That's up for debate. But Both guys, suffice to say, were the two most hated men on the show. FBI faced Super Crazy and Tajiri in an ECW match. That's the only way I can describe it. A lot of stuff happening in the beginning, and the crowd was sort of dead at the end. Big Guido was out there. FBI pinned Tajiri with a double fisherman buster, so he's on his way back to Japan right now and probably will not be returning. Which is interesting because they called Lance Storm, if you listen to the Daily Show, and said, we don't want to use anyone on the pay-per-view that's not going to be regular. And I believe Tajiri actually falls into that category, so that's odd. But anyway, that was the match. It was whatever. And then afterwards, Big Show came out and played the 911 role, destroyed everybody, including the babyfaces. And actually, I shouldn't say, I should add, in particular, Tony Mamaluke, who was broken in half and thrown around like a rag doll. And I know that's a cliche, but that is exactly how he was thrown around.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I've seen him take much worse beatings.
Well, that's undoubtedly true.
But yeah, so Big Show came out, and he was big and scary, and he reminded us all that he is in ECW now, and that was really the point of the whole thing, was that Big Show was really the star of the segment. The match was okay, nothing we haven't seen before. People were very happy to see Tajiri again, but nothing special.
Suddenly out came, of all people, John Bradshaw. Oh, here we go. God damn cocksucker.
That's much quieter over the phone.
Well, I didn't have the. I have a thing that I have to plug in to amplify everything, like the drop board and everything. So it's unplugged right now. Anyway, John Bradshaw Layfield came out, and the crowd chanted "You suck, dick," a bunch of other things. We haven't even really talked about the chants on this show, but
they were very lewd.
Yeah, you can probably read about them in the newsletter, but "You suck, dick," "Shut the fuck up," that sort of thing. Bradshaw was the biggest heel of anybody on the pay-per-view last year. Basically ran down everybody. You've got no girlfriends. You're all talking about my dong. You're all gay. This, that, and the other thing. Pretty much suggested he was going to be the new lead commentator on SmackDown, and made fun of Taz. You're leaving network TV for the Sci-Fi Network. He made a few good points. That's probably one of the reasons he was so hated. But
usually, when the heel comes out and he speaks the truth,
yes,
usually that's a good way to get hated.
And the fans hated this man, and this was a fine little segment.
It was what it was. He brought up the Blue Meanie and talked about that, and I figured they would, I figured maybe Blue Meanie would be there. But again, I was a fool.
Phone's a little far away from your face there, buddy.
I figured maybe he called out the Blue Meanie. I thought maybe Meanie would be there, but again, I was a fool.
You were a fool.
They brought in JBL and not, in fact, the Blue Meanie. So there you go.
Sabu? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, JBL, the key purpose of this, I think, was more than anything else just to announce that he's the new guy on SmackDown, which is, yay.
Yeah. Michael Cole and JBL. I don't know about that team. We shall see.
Bluffing. Yeah.
It may be temporary, who knows. But yeah. Sabu faced Rey Jr. for the world title. Rey Jr. was booed, but not vociferously. This was just more like, you're an invader, so we'll boo you, but we sort of like you, but we got to pretend like we don't.
It was booing in the sense that you are the bad guy. Yes,
we're going to go along with it and boo you.
Yes.
So anyway, this was much different than the Tacoma crowd, who would not go along with it when Jerry Lawler was trying to play with them and get them to chant ECW. But yes. These fans played along. They did a bunch of stuff. It was, I guess, better than I expected. I think I really expected a disaster. I certainly did not get a disaster.
No, it was definitely, probably from just an in-ring standpoint, it's probably the best match on the show. There's other stuff that have more drama, but as far as his actual execution of pro wrestling moves, this is head and shoulders above everything else.
I don't know. The Cena RVD wasn't that bad.
I thought it sucked.
Wow. Well, regardless, they had a match here, and it was fine. To me, the most interesting thing in this match was, I believe, and I could be corrected here, this was the first time Rey Jr. ever worked a match as a heel. Rey Jr., all 5 feet 2 inches of him, got the heat on Sabu. He was a rudo.
Yes.
And I loved every second of it.
Yeah, it was far from a disaster. I was watching, Rey at this point is so great. You just have a good match with literally anyone, Sabu or JBL or Mark Henry or Kurt Angle. And they did. I
like how you lumped Mark Henry and Kurt Angle together.
Yeah, well, but No, there's a bunch of chair-assisted stuff, and the big finish was Sabu sitting Rey up on a table outside and doing a triple jump springboard DDT thing that looked like it killed Rey Mysterio dead.
Not just Rey, it looked like they both died.
Yeah, Sabu took it back, fell back onto his back and looked like on the back of his head and neck. And yes, it was very effective for doing what they wanted to do, which was the double KO finish, which the crowd was not terribly happy with.
Well, here's the deal. They had a guy from the Athletic Commission supposedly come out and say, this match cannot continue, throw it out, blah, 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 whatever. And these guys sold it like they were dead. And the crowd initially chanted bullshit, but not for very long.
Yeah.
And I think that the most important thing was, if you're going to do this finish and not totally get people ready to riot, it's got to look like both guys maybe really did die.
Yeah.
And this did. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing. I mean, how do you explain that to two guys? We're going to do a double KO finish, so you guys have got to come as close to dying as possible without actually dying.
Actually, I see them giving that speech, and I just see Sabu going, okay. And Rey going, what?
Yeah.
So that was the other thing I thought immediately after this. My first thought was just, holy crap, I hope they're okay. And my second thought was just, why would Rey do this?
Well, I watched this match and I was like, Rey has got to be thinking today, thank God I'm done after tonight with this whole ECW bullshit deal. I mean, this poor guy, Rob Van Dam doing that leg drop or knee drop or whatever onto his head, the moonsault on the show.
Sabu did the same thing tonight. He
Yep.
did a triple jump moonsault and just kneed Rey right in the face.
Knee right to the face. He was throwing these chairs at his head. Just Rey didn't put his hands up for one of them. Just clonked him right in the head. This DDT through the table. They both looked like they were dead. And this would have been a lot worse if that would have looked hokey. I mean, this would have been an epic disaster had that not looked so devastating. So hopefully both guys are fine. I have heard nothing, so I'm going to assume everybody's okay. But that was a terrifying spot.
Yeah.
Got the holy shit chance, that sort of thing. So
both guys did walk out, so that's good news.
Yeah.
All I know is there is footage on the website apparently of Rey getting medical attention, but I didn't watch it yet.
Well, that might answer that question. But Foley came out and cut a promo, which included the lines, "Thank you, Stephanie McMahon, and long live the Alliance."
Yes, he said, I was a fan of ECW back when I had a brilliant creative owner, Stephanie McMahon, and I thought, you are the man.
So,
that was a beautiful line.
Edge came out, buried the fans for having no women. That was kind of a trend on this show. Said this show was like Christmas for the crowd, the only difference being that their Santa Claus, was a fat, bald Jewish guy that handed out Percocets to everybody. And, of course, they bleeped out the line Percocet
Yes.
because that is a drug and, the wellness policy and all. They did not, however, beep out the crowd chanting, "She's a crack whore" at Lita. So apparently crack is okay, but Percocet is on the banned subs. I don't even know if crack is on the wellness policy list.
God, you'd hope so.
You'd think so, but I don't remember that. I think that would have stuck out. No crack. Someone's going to have to investigate that. Anyway.
You may have found a loophole.
May have found a loophole. You can smoke crack or whatever. Beulah came out, and she now looks like a mom.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. She's a fine-looking mom, but she's a mom now. And they set up a 6-person. She said, "Lita, you like 3-ways so much, we'll just make this officially a 3-on-3 match." So the best part of this match was just, I don't really know how to rate it. I really don't know what to say about it, except that it was probably the most hardcore match ever promoted under the WWE umbrella. And as these men were brawling all over the building, there was fire, barbed wire, tables, chairs, and probably a couple things I'm forgetting about. The ladder. These two women stood on the apron waiting for a tag.
Yes.
They were waiting for a tag.
Well, you see, they were not legal yet. They didn't want to break the rules. More specifically, they wanted to save the cat fight for the big spot at the end.
Yes, but there was just something about that just killed me. But Funk and Foley hit each other as hard as possible. They had a barbed wire board that was actually covered with real barbed wire. They had a barbed wire bat that was covered with real barbed wire, and another one covered with fake barbed wire, depending on who was going to get hit by said barbed wire bat. There was blood. Terry Funk ended up wrapped up in barbed wire on a barbed wire board. Both him and Foley got caught in this barbed wire, and they were like cows that had been caught in a barbed wire fence. And it was just like, maybe you should just shoot them. Put them out of their misery. They were wrapped up and miserable. Funk started screaming about his eyeball, so they carted him to the back. Everybody chanted Sandman. They did not get Sandman. Apparently the fans were theoretically better bookers in WWE, but really the story of this match worked out just fine. Funk came back with another board. Fans chanted, "We want fire," so he lit it on fire. He hit Foley in the back and the stomach with his bat. Foley's flannel was actually on fire.
Yes, Mick Foley clothing was on fire, and it started to get a little scary.
He took a bump off the apron, took the nasty plunge onto a barbed wire board, and in the ring they did a bunch of finishes. To make a long story short, they had the cat fight. Dreamer gave Lita the Death Valley driver, and then Edge ended up, I guess, hitting the execution or whatever the hell you call that stupid move, barbed wire.
The dealie where he grabs the dude's head and falls backwards.
Sure, the sit back, what have you. Barbed wire assisted. And then he speared Beulah. And I must note that this was not, I'm going to spear a mom. I'll make sure I don't hurt her. This was, I'm going to spear this woman out of her boots, which he did. And then he humped her for the 3 count.
He did. He humbled her, really, in mid-ring.
He did. He humbled Beulah to win this match.
I can only assume this is not over yet, but who knows?
Well, I think, I was watching this match, and if you just judge it on the story and the drama and the heat in the building, this was 4 stars plus.
Yes.
And I watched it and I just thought, Terry Funk, you can't move. You have retired 84 times, but seriously, dude, you got to go out on this match. You ain't topping this one ever.
No, he will never have a better match than this one for the rest of his life.
No, this was like the pinnacle of the end of Terry Funk's career. If he comes back after this, he's a fool. And sadly, he probably will. I hope this really is the end, because this was a hell of a performance, really, by every single person involved. I mean, overall, I would rank this. If you asked me what was the best match on the show, I'd say this one. Yeah. And it was sloppy and scary and just, I don't even know what you can call it, but goddamn, it was something else.
Jesus Christ, the people cared about it.
Oh, they cared about this something fierce.
Yes, they when you trying to talk about who was the biggest heel in the show, there's no doubt that Dreamer and Funk were the biggest heroes.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe RVD, but even then, it wasn't so much they loved RVD as they hated Cena. But
it's one of those things where you can try and, if you wanted to really break it down and analyze it, what were the spots, what looked good, what didn't look good, what made sense, what didn't make sense. That you can do all that if you want, but really, it's one of those matches where you watch it, and when it's over, you realize this was something special and something people are probably going to be talking about for a long time. Yeah. I mean, next year when people go, what do you remember from last year's One Night Stand? They'll probably say, I remember Cena getting booed out of the building, and I remember that match with Terry Funk and his eyeball. So
Terry Funk and his eyeball.
That's what wrestling is. It's creating moments and creating memories, and this match did that.
Well said. I can't top that. That sums up everything perfectly.
Balls Mahoney faced Masato Tanaka, whose shoulder is still taped up after all these years. They had it was weird because they had to follow the previous match, and they decided to do that by having a wrestling match. The first thing these two fucking guys did, Balls Mahoney and Masato Tanaka, is a high spot, a tackle drop-down high spot.
Yes, they did Pro Wrestling 101. It amused me.
They did grappling.
They did some arm drags.
They did some wrestling. They ended up outside, and they saved it till the very end. Balls Mahoney gave Masato Tanaka one extraordinarily hard chair shot and then pinned him, and that was the end of that. It was simple. It was effective. Not a classic or anything like that, but it was what it needed to be.
I can see these two guys backstage with Vince McMahon saying, Vince, here's the finish of this match. I'm going to hit him as hard as I can with a chair, and he will no-sell it. So I'll hit him 5 more times. And Vince just saying, no.
Well,
You don't
I think I believe they did that last year.
That's what Masato Tanaka does.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
People don't understand the chair shots. I mean, these mess you up.
Yeah.
And Masato Tanaka probably is messed up, and if not, he will be within a number of years. And he doesn't need to be taking 8 chair shots to the head. It's just...
I totally agree, especially not on the... I guess technically it was a semi-main on the show, but a match no one cared about.
An undercard match.
Yeah. And again, Boss Mahoney won, so you figure Masato, thanks for coming. See you next year.
Yeah. Then we had the big one, John Cena and RVD for the WWE title.
Well, they announced this, but they were interrupted by young Eugene.
Yes, Eugene came out. I actually thought they might do the deal where he renounced the gimmick and went back to Nick Dinsmore, the wrestling machine, since that, of course, would make sense in the wrestling-oriented ECW with Kurt Angle on top. But no, he came out as a goof, made fun of the people in an offhanded sort of way, and Sandman came out and caned the shit out of him. Sandman has new music. It's
actually not that close to Enter Sandman.
It's nothing like Sandman, Enter Sandman, and... You know, what's Sandman without that song?
I don't know.
He's a guy with a cane and a beer and a weird sort of charisma where he can sort of get away with this where 98% of other guys wouldn't be able to get away with this gimmick.
Yeah, Eugene was in the ring reading a poem, which I actually enjoyed quite a bit. But then they cut to a shot of Sandman in the lobby just looking drunk and incensed, and it was great.
ECW is not phony. I want to hug Balls Mahoney.
Yes.
It was very creative, really.
It was much better than anything Heidenreich ever did.
Yes. So,
yes. So, yeah, Sandman came down and hit him with his cane several times. Even then, these were WWE cane shots. He was not hitting him as hard as he could.
No. It's a new ECW.
Which I totally endorse.
It's a new ECW. It's not a one-night stand where last year they sort of had it planned as a one-night only thing so you could do some craziness. Now it's a new brand, and so they've got to wean folks off the old ECW and, I guess, prepare them, however the word is, acclimate them to the new ECW, and that's what they're doing right now. So
we can be positive and say educate them.
Educate them, there you go. John Cena versus RVD for the title. They finally announced it. Signs included, "We want Cena's blood. I came to see Cena die. If Cena wins, we riot." I'm actually wondering if perhaps they were not planning this finish and like earlier in the night Vince saw that sign and was like, okay, hold on a second. We're going to make a few changes here because these fucking people might actually riot. They had a match. It was better than I expected it to be. I think a lot of that, again, was mostly the crowd. Boy, they hated John Cena, but it seemed to me, like I said earlier, the Orton hatred seemed like legitimate hatred, and the Cena hatred seemed more like playful hatred, but it wasn't playful. I don't even really know how to explain it.
No one violently attacked Cena like they did Orton.
No, he actually went into the crowd, and people just got out of his way. And to me, that was a sign you guys don't really hate him that much. I don't know. I don't think they would have attacked Orton. Well, actually, someone did attack Orton, really. They punched him. But, I don't know, there's just something different about this heat as compared to Orton. But anyway, they had a match, and again, the fans were awesome. There were "you can't wrestle" chants, same old shit chants, overrated chants, which to me were the funniest all night because I was like, which man are they chanting overrated to? John Cena, Rob Van Dam. And same old shit, that sort of deal. To make a long story short, Rob Van Dam hit the frog splash, but there was no ref. The ref had been knocked out earlier. Actually, 2 refs had been knocked out. And he made the cover, outran Paul Heyman. He counted to 3. He beckoned to the ring announcer to ring the bell. Steven DeAngelis, or whatever his name is, announced Rob Van Dam as the new WWE ECW champion. He celebrated. Nobody came out to reverse the decision. And RVD celebrated with the people. He went up in the balcony to be with his wife, the whole 9 yards. And
the whole locker room empty to celebrate?
Yep, the whole locker room was in the ring, including a bunch of geeks we had not seen earlier. The Kid Cashes.
Fonzie was out there.
Mikey Whipwreck and Fonzie. Bill Alfonso. The hell's that girl's name? Trinity. All of them in the ring. And they held RVD up on their shoulders and celebrated till the show went off the air. And so I guess we have to wait for Raw to determine the status of the title, which will probably begin with Vince McMahon coming out and saying, no.
I did see the first note on the website is the title situation will be addressed first thing on Raw tomorrow.
Oh, did they? Okay. All I knew is they had agreed to Cena and Edge tomorrow on the show, which is an odd match, seeing as how they're on Vengeance in 2 weeks. So
you also did not mention that prior to Rob hitting the Frog Splash, John Cena set up a table in the corner and then turned around and was speared by a mystery man.
Who ended up being Edge.
Turned out to be young Edge. So,
you know what they could do, which it kind of surprised me, they're doing the WWE title thing at the very beginning of the show. I mean, they could do a deal where you open the show with Edge and John Cena, and John Cena at that point, I guess, technically isn't the champion. Mm-hmm. You can have Edge beat him, which puts heat on their match at the pay-per-view, and then later on in the show, you give the belt back to Cena as a result of what happened the night before. And Edge now holds a win over the champion, but it wasn't a title match, or however you want to do it. And
I guess that would...
But they're not going to, so...
In the crazy, screwed-up world of pro wrestling, I guess that would make sense.
Well, nothing makes sense in wrestling, so I just figured, what the hell?
What the hell, yeah.
But anyway, we'll find out tomorrow, but the show went off the air, and everybody was very, very happy. I think...
Even then, maybe because they all knew they all knew it was not a legit finish.
I think that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah, the celebration was not exuberant. It was like relief. It was like, okay, Rob won. That's good. Okay, good. There was not euphoria. There was not. It reminded me mainly because the exact same finishing move was used, but of Eddie Guerrero's title win over Brock Lesnar, when the whole building just exploded with glee. And this was not in the same universe as that reaction.
Well, I think what it is when the finish occurred, the ref was down and everybody knew it. Mm-hmm. And Paul Heyman ran in, and he counted to 3, and I think every fan in the building at the same time just thought, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
And then they just went along with it. And so I think the people kind of, okay, they have not reversed the decision. And then I think got to the point where they went, okay, they're not going to reverse the decision tonight, so we might as well just have fun with this, and they all had a great time.
Yeah.
But I think everybody, I think in the back of their minds, I don't think there was one fan in that building who thought RVD is the WWE champion, and he's going to be holding on to that belt.
And no one said, I can't believe I saw RVD win. This is the greatest night of my life as a wrestling fan.
Yes.
It was just, maybe that's not what they were looking for, but it seemed like something that could have been a lot more special and was not. And part of that is because John Cena didn't really wrestle as the heel. He did not. There was not a prolonged period where John Cena was beating up Rob Van Dam and the fans were waiting for a comeback, and then there was no point where Rob made his big explosive comeback. They just did moves. It was the match.
It was a Rob Van Dam ECW match.
Well, yeah, maybe that's why I hated it. And the other funny thing was, I expected Cena to come out, I expected him to get booed, and I expected him to just roll with it and play the heel and maybe vent some frustration over the past year.
Well, he sort of did.
Eventually, towards the end, he kind of turned around. At first, he looked legitimately hurt. I thought he might cry when they started throwing his shirt back.
I think that's what they wanted him to do. I think that was all by design.
Yeah, and maybe in a weird way that may have fueled the reaction rather than kill it, but it was just odd to see. But because it was a Rob Van Dam ECW match where you did not have the babyface making the comeback, I think that played a big part in the relatively flat reaction.
See, the thing with WWE is there was always discussion dating all the way back to January. Should we turn this guy heel? And the decision was always no. We're going to keep this guy a babyface. And I don't think they wanted him going into this ECW pay-per-view and playing heel. Yeah. Because there was probably this thought that if he does this, the WWE fans that buy this pay-per-view may not expect to accept him back tomorrow. This has got to be a deal where he's still the same John Cena. He's just in hostile territory. Yeah. And, it does sort of, it affects him and that sort of thing. So, obviously, I really think this was just another way to protect Cena and keep him over as a babyface and selling merchandise and that sort of thing, not letting him go full bore because of the fear that if he went full bore, the WWE...
They want to take him back?
Sure, he'd alienate some of the fan base that there are fans that love John Cena and don't understand why he's booed and see him as a babyface, and they're upset about it, and they still support him.
Yeah.
I think they figure if you show that he actually is an asshole, he might lose that segment of the crowd. So
well, I definitely think turning him is a horrible idea.
Yeah.
I think he's way better as a babyface. I think if he's a heel full time, and then suddenly he's on offense full time, and that's a bad idea.
I also wanted to throw in that when Edge actually speared Cena through the table, Cena through the table, the fans who earlier in the show had hated this man with a passion chanted, "Thank you, Edge."
Yes.
I thought that was a very definition of ECW fans, just fickle.
Fickle.
And I don't want to, if you're an ECW fan listening to this, don't you dare get mad at me, because every time a big star showed up at the ECW arena back in the day, you guys all went apeshit over this guy.
I remember one show in particular when it was, I believe it was Dreamer and Rob Van Dam, but Dreamer was running wild and outran Stevie Richards in his big return. And he chanted, "Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back." And then he kicked Tommy, and they all started booing him. They are in fact very fickle.
Yes. And I'm fine with that because I'm a very fickle man myself, as everybody's well aware. But anyway, like I said, if we get any notes on injuries and that sort of thing, we'll talk about it tomorrow in Figure 4 Daily. We'll put the news up in the news update tomorrow. But hopefully everybody is fine. There were some scary moments on the show. But like I said, we shall see how things pan out. Tomorrow should be an interesting Raw, or tonight actually should be an interesting Raw. And tomorrow, a very interesting episode. The first ever episode of, as it is being called, ECW. The new ECW show on the Sci-Fi Network. So, that's it from here, kids. Vinny and I will be back tomorrow.